I found the invoice before Russell did. That was my mistake. Not finding it, I mean the order of it. If I had found it after he told me himself, none of this would have mattered near as much. But I found it first, in the mail, on a Wednesday, the recycling day, and I did not know yet what I was holding. I am Marion Colby, 91 this past March. Emily brought a cake with too many candles on it and set off the smoke alarm before anyone got a slice. If you want to know how I keep track of my own age these days, that is the kind of thing that sticks. Not the number, the smoke alarm. The envelope had no folded tab, no yellow sticky note, none of the ceremony Russell usually brings with his paperwork. Just my name and my address, typed plain, and inside it a single sheet, a receipt, really, a deposit confirmation. Basement remodel, deposit received in full, signed authorization on file. I stood at the counter reading it 3 times before I understood I was reading it right. I do that now, read things 3 times, and I used to think that was just getting old, the letters swimming around some, needing an extra pass. It was not that. I read it right the first time. I just did not want to. There is a spot right there at that counter, worn a little paler than the rest of the countertop, where I have stood for every important piece of mail that has ever come into this house. The letter that told us Diane got into her program, the notice about Walter's pension after he passed, the card from the bank the year the porch flooded. I noticed, standing there with the deposit letter in my hand, that my thumb had found that same worn spot without my telling it to, like my body already knew before the rest of me caught up, that this was one of those pieces of mail. I had not ordered a basement remodel. I had not heard the word remodel out loud from anyone, not from Russell, not from Diane, not from that girl at the hardware store who knows my name because I buy the same brand of dish soap every single month. I set the letter down on the counter and picked it back up twice more. The way you do with a splinter you are not sure is really there until you press on it again. There is a particular kind of quiet that comes into a kitchen when something is wrong, and you have not told anyone yet, not even yourself properly. The refrigerator humming along same as always, the clock on the stove blinking its usual green, everything exactly as it had been 5 minutes before, except now it was not. Not really, not underneath. I worked at a fabric shop for a few years back in the 70s, after Patricia started school, and I had a few hours in the day that belonged to nobody but me, Mrs. Halloran ran the place, and she taught me to read a bolt of cloth the way you would read a face, where it was going to run, where it would hold, what it would do once you had cut into it and there was no taking that back. She used to say, the mistake people make with contracts is the same mistake they make with fabric. They look at the top layer and assume the whole thing behaves the same all the way through. I thought about her, standing at my counter with that letter in my hand. I thought, there it is, Mrs. Halloran. There is the mistake. 40 years late and right on schedule. Let me back up, because you need the whole shape of it, not just where it landed. 3 weeks before that envelope came, Russell had sat at my kitchen table with a folder. Just one page pulled out of it, folded once, a yellow tab stuck to the side, like something off a legal drama. I had a bowl of peas in my lap, shelling them the old way, the way my mother did it, thumb along the seam, and my glasses were sitting in my purse in the other room, right where I had left them after church. Storm knocked something loose on the roof, Mom, he said. I had a guy out there yesterday, says the gutters are pulling away from the fascia board. I still do not know what a fascia board is. I could look it up. I suppose, but at this point it feels like it belongs to him now, not me, his word, not mine. I will email you the estimate, but honestly it is the same as when we did the porch 2 summers ago. Just sign where it says homeowner authorization, and I will drop it back to him. Same as the porch. That is what he said, and I believed him, because why would I not? The porch job had gone fine. Russell had handled the whole thing without a single hitch, and I remember thinking at the time, is it not nice having a son who takes care of things? I got up to get my glasses. He said, easy, already halfway back toward the door, keys in hand. It is fine, Mum. It is just the routine form, same as last time. Sign where the tab is. And I did. I want you to understand something about me before I go any further, because I think it matters more than the rest of this story put together. I am not a woman who signs things without reading them. My mother raised me sharper than that, read every line twice, she used to say, because the second time is when they think you have stopped looking. She was strict, my mother, sharp-tongued, the kind of woman who would make you recite the whole contract back to her before she would let you put your name on anything, even a library card. I taught that same thing to my own 3 children, sat them down at this very table, and made them read the fine print on their first apartment leases word for word while I watched. And still, I signed it, because it was Russell, and because I had a bowl of peas in my lap, and my glasses were 15 feet away in the other room, and because this is the part I am least proud of, the part I have turned over more than any other. I did not want to be the difficult one, the one who makes her own son stand in the doorway an extra 2 minutes while she squints at fine print like she does not trust him. So I signed. He folded the page back into the folder. He kissed the top of my head, which he has done since he was tall enough to reach it without standing on a stool, and he left, and I went back to my peas, and the radio kept going on low, one of those call-in shows where grown men argue about football like it is scripture, and that was that. For 3 weeks, that was that. I want to give you a little of those 3 weeks, because that is the part I go back to hardest now, not the lie itself, but the quiet stretch before it, when I should have noticed something and did not. And I think that is true of most things that go wrong in a family. It is rarely the moment itself. It is the weeks around it, where you had every chance and did not take it. Faye called on a Thursday the way she does, same time every week, near enough you could set a clock by it. And she told me the Ackerman boy down the street had gone and painted his mailbox to look like a football helmet, orange and blue, a little face mask drawn on with a paint pen, which I found funnier than I probably should have at 91 years old. We talked 40 minutes about nothing. Her knee, my hip, whether the Hendersons were finally going to sell that house they had had on the market since spring. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in a while. I did not think once about the folder, or the fine print, or the yellow tab. Emily came by that Saturday with young Colby in tow, home from school with some project about state birds he needed help gluing feathers onto, and we sat at this same table, the peas long since eaten, put up in the freezer, and I watched him concentrate so hard on getting the blue jay's wing right that his tongue stuck out the side of his mouth, same as his mother used to do at that age. Emily asked how I was doing, the way she always does now that she is in nursing and thinks in terms of doing, and I told her, fine, everything's fine, and it was true, as far as I knew. I noticed a truck in the driveway one afternoon that same week. Not the gutter man's truck, which I would have recognized, a different one entirely, with a company name stenciled on the side door that meant nothing to me. I stood at the window with a dish towel still in my hand and thought, well, maybe that is for the gutters too. Contractors farm things out to each other. I do not understand half of how any of that works anymore. I did not go out and ask. I made a note in my head to ask Russell the next time I saw him. And then, the way things go when you are 91 and your days are full of smaller things, a doctor's appointment, a grocery list, a phone call from Diane about nothing in particular, I forgot. I want you to sit with that for a second, because I have. I saw the truck, I had the thought, and I let it go, because asking felt like fussing, and I have spent 91 years trying very hard not to be a woman who fusses over her own children. As it happened, I did see Russell again before that particular thought resurfaced, the very next week, in fact, right there in my own driveway. And that is the part of this story that still sits the worst with me, worse even than the paperwork. He had stopped by to drop off a casserole dish Diane had sent home with him. After some church supper, I had not been able to attend on account of my hip acting up. I was out front getting the mail, and that same unfamiliar truck came rumbling up the road and turned into my driveway, 2 men in the cab, one of them waving at Russell like they knew each other well. I asked him, right there, both of us standing in the driveway, watching the truck pull past us toward the side of the house, "Who is that?" "Subcontractor for the gutters," he said, easy as anything, shifting the casserole dish to his other arm. "They farm pieces out now. You know how it is. Nobody does one job start to finish anymore. Everybody's specialized." That was a lie. I know now it was a lie. Dressed up smart enough that I did not question it for 1 second, standing there in the sunshine. That truck belonged to the excavation crew starting work on my basement, and my own son stood in my own driveway with a casserole dish in his arms and told me it was gutters. Not "I will explain later." Not a shrug. Not a change of subject. Not even silence, which I think I could have forgiven easier than what he actually did. He looked me in the eye and made something up, smooth and quick, the way you would explain to a child that the dog went to live on a farm. I believed him. I went back inside, and I made us both coffee, and we sat right here at this table and talked about Diane's new grandbaby for the better part of an hour, and I did not think about that truck again, not once, until the envelope came. So there I was, 3 weeks later, standing at this very counter with a deposit confirmation for a remodel I had never agreed to in my life, and a memory, freshly turned over, of my own son standing in my own driveway, lying to my face with somebody else's casserole dish still balanced on his arm. I called him. I want to tell you honestly that I did not raise my voice, because it would be easier, in the telling, to say that I did, that I let him have it, both barrels, the way you see in the movies. I did not. That is not who I am, and it was not what happened. "I got a letter today," I said, "a deposit confirmation for a basement remodel." Silence on his end, the kind I recognized from raising 3 children of my own, the caught kind, the kind where you can hear someone deciding in real time how much of the truth they are willing to hand over. "I was going to tell you before the crew started," he said finally. "You told me it was gutters," I said, "in the driveway. I asked you directly, Russell. I looked right at you and asked, 'Mom?' You looked right at me and told me it was gutters. I did not want you worrying about the cost before I had the final numbers locked in. I was going to bring the whole thing to you once. You lied to me, standing in my own driveway with Diane's casserole dish in your hands. That is not the same as not mentioning something to me yet. That is a different thing entirely, and I think you know it. It was not like that, Mom. I was not trying to. Then what were you trying to do, Russell? Tell me plainly, right now, on this phone, what you were trying to do when you looked at me in that driveway and said the word gutters. He did not answer that straight off, and I let him sit in it. I have learned, raising 3 children and burying a husband, that the silence after a hard question does more work than anything you could say to fill it. Walter taught me that without ever meaning to, he would go quiet for whole minutes when something was eating at him, and I learned early on not to rush in and patch it over with talk, just to let it be quiet until the true thing surfaced on its own, in its own time. I did not want it to turn into a whole discussion, he said finally. You and Diane and Pat, everybody weighing in. 3 different opinions about contractors and cost and whether the house even needs it. I thought if I just got it moving, it would be done before anybody had the chance to argue about it, and you would have a dry basement, and that would be the end of it. That would be the end of it, I repeated back to him. Except it was not the end of anything, Russell. It was the beginning of you standing in my driveway lying to my face. He did not have an answer ready for that one. I let the silence sit there a good long while, longer than was comfortable for either one of us, before either of us said another word. I called the company myself the next morning. The number was right there on the letterhead, plain as anything, no folder needed, no yellow tab required. A man named Danny answered, cheerful, the way young men in that line of work tend to be before they know they have stepped in anything. Mrs. Colby. Good. Glad I have finally got you direct. We have been coordinating everything through your son up till now, but it is good to connect proper. We are still on schedule to pour the slab Thursday, unless something has changed on your end. Everything has changed, I said. Nothing pours on Thursday. I want every page you have, all of it, sent to me directly, and I will be coming to your office myself to go through it. He was decent about it once he understood the shape of things. Apologized twice, though it was not rightly his to apologize for. Said he would redirect every bit of correspondence to me going forward, and asked would I like the whole packet mailed, or would I rather come by in person. I told him I would come by in person. I did not tell Russell I was going. That is not spite, or, well, maybe it is a little spite. I will not pretend otherwise at 91. I believe I have earned the right to a little spite here and there. But mostly it was this. I wanted to sit down and read something, start to finish, in my own time, before one more person told me what it said. Diane called that same week, having heard the short version from Russell, the way news travels sideways through that family faster than I can ever keep up with anymore. She wanted to smooth it over, the way Diane does, always has, since she was old enough to referee squabbles between her brother and sister at this same table. He did not mean anything terrible by it, Mom. You know how he gets when he is trying to handle things for you, and I let her talk, because I love my daughter, and because I know she was trying to keep the peace in the family, not take her brother's side over mine. But I did say one thing to her, and I will tell you what it was, because it is the truest thing I said that whole week, truer than anything I managed to say to Russell himself. He is under a lot of pressure, Mom, with work and everything. I think he just wanted one thing to go smooth without a fuss, Diane said, and I could hear in her voice that she half believed it herself, the way she has always tried to smooth the family into flatness, ever since she was a little girl setting the table, so the forks all lined up exact, even when nobody else in the house cared one way or the other. He loves you, you know that. He would not do something to hurt you on purpose. He did not do it to hurt me, I said. I believe that much, but he did it anyway, Diane. Hurt or not hurt was not the point he was thinking about at all. He was thinking about what was easiest for him, and he decided my part in my own house was not worth the trouble of asking. I do not need anybody to handle me, Diane. I need somebody to ask me. Those are two very different things, and I would have thought at your age you would know the difference. She went quiet on her end of the line, the particular kind of quiet people go when you have said something they cannot rightly argue with and do not especially want to sit inside of, either. I told Faye the whole thing that same week, over coffee at her kitchen table instead of mine for a change, and I watched her face go through about 4 different expressions before she settled on the one she kept. Faye does not hold back much, never has. Not since we were young women hanging wash out on the line together and trading complaints about our mothers-in-law. He did what, she said, not even really a question, more just repeating it back to make sure she had heard right. When I got to the part about the driveway, about the casserole dish, she set her cup down hard enough that coffee jumped over the rim. Marion, he looked at you and lied. That is not forgetting to mention something. That is a decision he made, standing right there, to tell you something false instead of something true. I told her I knew that. I told her I had known it the whole drive over. It helped anyway, hearing somebody else say it plain. Somebody who was not tangled up in loving him the way I am. I want to tell you what happened at that office, because it mattered to me more than the argument with Russell ever did. I sat across a wide table from a man half my age and read every single page myself, start to finish, my glasses on the whole time, pushed up firm on my nose. I asked him to explain the parts I did not fully follow, and I asked again when the first explanation did not land right, and I kept asking until it did. It took an extra 6 weeks to get the whole project moving the correct way, my way, with my own name listed as the only decision maker on file, in ink I could read without squinting, on a form I had chosen the wording of myself. There was a woman at the county office that day, too, a clerk who stamped one of the pages and glanced up at me and said, "Good for you, coming in yourself." Most folks just sign whatever their kids put in front of them. I did not know what to say to that, so I just nodded. But I have turned that sentence over more than a few times since. Most folks just sign whatever their kids put in front of them, like it was a known thing, an ordinary thing, not a single strange betrayal cooked up special for me. I do not know if that made it better or worse. Some days I think it makes it a little better, other days worse. Russell was not in that room for any part of it. I did not invite him. I believe that stung him worse, in the end, than the argument in the driveway did, though he would never come out and say so plainly. That is not really his way, saying things plainly. Signing a form is his way. Standing in a driveway with a casserole dish and telling an easy lie is his way. I have come around to understanding that much about my own son, even if I do not fully understand the why of it, and I am not sure, at 91, that understanding the why of a thing is owed to me the way I used to think it was. He came by on a Sunday, a few weeks after the office visit, no folder in his hands this time. Just him, standing in the doorway the way he used to stand when he was young, and wanted something from me, and knew full well he had to ask for it properly, not sneak up on it sideways. "I should not have said it was gutters," he said. "In the driveway. I knew exactly what you were asking me, and I answered you with something else." "Yes," I said, "you did. I did not think you would say no to the remodel, if it came to that. You did not give me the chance to say anything at all, Russell, yes or no. That is the whole trouble, right there. Not what I might have decided, but that you took the deciding away from me before I ever got to it." He did not have an answer for that one either. I did not need him to have one. He stayed a while longer that Sunday, and we did not talk about the basement again, not direct. He fixed a loose hinge on the screen door that had been squeaking since spring, without my asking him to, the way he used to do small things around the house when he was a teenager and did not know how to say what he meant any other way. I watched him from the kitchen window, a screwdriver in his hand, taking his time with it, and I thought, there he is. That is the boy underneath the man who lied to me in the driveway, and both of those are true at the same time, and I do not know that I will ever fully sort out what to do with having both of them true at once. My glasses live on the front hall table now, not in my purse, not in the drawer by my bed where they used to spend most of their time. Right there, on the little dish by the door, where I cannot walk past them without seeing them square in front of me. Junk mail, doctor's forms, the card young Colby brings home from school asking me to come sit in the gymnasium and watch his class put on their little play about the seasons. I put my glasses on for every bit of it now, every single time, no exceptions, no matter how small the paper looks in somebody's outstretched hand, especially the ones somebody hands me in a hurry, already halfway out my door. A hurry, I have come to believe, is very often somebody's way of hoping you will not look too close.